There is somebody or something you can connect to that can take you places that you can't take yourself. It's impossible to become the best version of you without some type of guide. You gotta make sure you're always connected to the right thing. Sharks never look down. They only look up, which means they're positive, but most importantly, they are looking for opportunities. Is it a social media expert? Is it the right salesperson? Is it the right manager? Is it the right organization? There is somebody or something you can connect to that can take you places that you can't take yourself. And you need to be looking for these opportunities. Because if you're not looking for these opportunities, you won't recognize it when it shows up. Take one more minute and just think creatively. Who or what do I need to connect to? And I'm going to give you some ideas. On my way to the NBA, the first thing I had to connect to was coaching. I needed great coaches that can help me develop and become. Now, I'm going to explain the shark mindset in just a moment, because the suckerfish connects to the shark, and the shark takes the suckerfish places it can't take himself. Question: who's your coach and who's your mentor? Who's your coach and who's your mentor? If you don't have a coach, if you don't have a mentor, you are in the right place. Because the one thing I learned on my way to the NBA, it's impossible to become the best version of you without some type of guide. If you look at professional sports, every great player is connected to what? Say it loud. Every great player is connected to a great coach. And this coach's job is to guide you to the best version of yourself. Let's look at our favorite movies. Who was the guide in Karate Kid? Mr. Miyagi. Would Karate Kid be Karate Kid without Mr. Miyagi? No. He'd have kept getting his butt kicked. Am I right or wrong? Who was the guide in Rocky? Who was in Rocky's corner? You guys need to go to movies more often. Mickey! Mickey was in his corner, and so was Adrian, his wife. You got to make sure you're always connected to the right thing. Does that make any sense? So the way the shark mindset works, guys, there's a shark, there's a suckerfish, and there's a parasite. There's a shark, there's a suckerfish, there's a parasite. Write this down. There's only 3 kind of people on this earth. There's only 3 kind of people on this earth. There's only 3 kind of people on this earth. They're sharks. These are people who are focused, who are relentless, who are locked in. When a shark sees it prey, it goes into a trance. When a shark sees it prey, it goes into a trance. When a shark locks in on its prey, it goes into a trance. That is why the Bible says, without a vision, people perish. Because if you don't have a vision, you're not locked into anything. And every time the wind blows, there you go. Every time we have some trouble, there you go. Every time you face some adversity, there you go. On my way to the NBA, I had adversity. On the way to the NBA, I had challenges, but I stayed locked into the vision, because without a vision, people perish. When I was 16 years old, I told my dad, I'm going to play in the NBA. And when I'm done playing in the NBA, I'm going to make more money in business than I did in sports. At 16 years old. And along the journey, I had adversity. I had setbacks. I had challenges. But I went into a trance. Sharks have characteristics. And that's why they're the apex predator in the ocean. I'm going to cover the 6 at a high level, because today I just want to double click on one. Sharks never stop moving forward or they die. Sharks never stop moving forward or they die. Please write these down, because if you develop the characteristics of a shark, trust me, you'll become the apex predator in your industry, which simply means every single day you got to make progress. Every year we have 365 days in the year. There is no excuse for you not to make progress every single day. Why? You're locked in on your vision. You're locked in a trance-like state. And every single day, you got to make some advancement towards your vision. The most important step of a baby is what? Any moms in here? What's the very first step that we all celebrate? A baby step. Why is that baby step so important? Because it represents progress. You can baby step your way to $1 million. Think about it. There's 365 days in a year. You mean to tell me if you make a little bit of progress in 365 days, I can walk home from here in a whole lot less than 365 days. So the biggest challenge you might be having right now, you're not making any progress. Every single day, you need to make progress, and that's the number one reason why sharks are the apex predator in the ocean. I'm gonna come back to that. Sharks never look down, they only look up. Sharks never look down, they only look up. What does that really mean? Sharks focus on the right things. Sharks don't watch the news. Sharks aren't focused on Trump. Sharks aren't focused on P. Diddy. Sharks are not focused on foolishness. Sharks are focused on their business. Sharks never look down. They only look up, which means they're positive, but most importantly, they are looking for opportunities. They're constantly looking for opportunities. And how do opportunities present themselves? Anybody know? Does anybody know how opportunities present themselves? As problems. That's what opportunities are. Problems. And if your product, if your service can solve a problem, trust me, people will line up and they will pay premium dollars for the problem that you solve. But here's a problem. If you don't know how to market, nobody knows you. If you don't know how to market, nobody knows who you are. If you don't know how to brand, nobody knows who you are. On my way to the NBA, I had to learn how to dribble. I had to learn how to shoot. Can I ask you a question? Have you mastered marketing? Do you know how to market? Now, if I went to a young kid and said, you want to play in the NBA? Yes, sir. Well, can you dribble? No, sir. Well, do you work on your dribbling? No, sir. Well, you're fooling yourself, son. You're never playing in the NBA if you can't dribble a basketball. You want to be a millionaire? Do you know how to market? No, sir. Do you work on your marketing? No, sir. Well, I'm happy to tell you, you are fooling yourself. You will never be $1 million business person if you don't master the basic fundamentals of business, which is marketing. To me, marketing is just like dribbling a basketball. If you go to the local bookstore, there's probably 1,000 books on how to market. So you're in business for yourself. You're an entrepreneur. And you've not spent any time learning how to market. I mean, Target knows how to market. Raise your hand if you heard of Target. Raise your hand if you heard of McDonald's. They market so well, you can see their logo without their name. You know who they are. When you see a red bullseye, we know who they are. When you see those golden arches, they know who they are. We know who they are. Am I right or wrong? So if you don't know how to market, guys, you're fooling yourself to think you're going to be $1 million player. Number two, have you learned how to sell? To me, if you're going to be successful in business, you need to have the right mindset that I need to learn how to market and I need to learn how to sell. Because if I learn how to market and I learn how to sell, that's the foundation of any successful business. So you wake up every morning, scratching your head, trying to figure out how to blow up, trying to figure out how to thrive, but if you don't know how to market, if you don't know how to sell, you're going to matriculate not to thriving, but to surviving. Raise your hand if you've just been surviving for a long time. Raise your hand. It's okay. Don't be ashamed. You've been surviving, and you know why? Because your mindset is off. You don't have enough people in your life, which means God can get a lot of blessings to you because you don't have enough people in your life, right? Two, if you don't know how to market, if you don't know how to sell, it's going to be impossible for God to bless you. I can almost stop my program right now because you got some value already. One, you need to know a lot of people. Raise your hand if you agree. Two, man, if I learn how to market, if I learn how to sell, that's like a ball player dribbling and shooting a basketball. If you agree with that analogy, raise your hand. So to be successful in business is about the mastery of the fundamentals of business. Sharks never stop moving forward or they die. Imagine if you committed yourself to mastering marketing. You will make progress. If you agree with me, raise your hand and say yes. Imagine if you focus on selling. If I don't make you some progress, raise your hand and say yes. The first thing my wife and I did, I never had a real job, guys, but we focused on marketing, we focused on selling. We focused on marketing, we focused on selling. I made progress by calling 25 people a day, every single day, asking them to buy. I called 25 people a day, every single day, asking them to buy. I called 25 people every single day and asked them to buy. Write this down, habits and rituals. 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 If you want to be successful in business, you must have habits and rituals. Here's the difference between a habit and a ritual. A habit, sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. Some of us have good habits and some of us have bad habits. If you agree with me, raise your hand and say yes. Here's the difference. You need to have rituals. Rituals are different than habits. Habits can be bad, habits can be good. Sometimes you do them, sometimes you don't. When you adhere to a ritual, your ritual is connected to a desired result. My ritual every single day was to call 25 people a day, every single day, and I did it no matter what. Whether I felt like it, whether I wanted to do it, didn't matter. I had a ritual of calling 25 people a day, every single day, asking them to buy. In a year's time, does anybody know the math of how many people I asked to buy? In a year's time, that's 6,000 people. In 1 year, by calling 25 people a day, asking them to buy, in 1 year, I contacted 6,000 people in 1 year. You can have a horrible closing rate, but if you ask 6,000 churches to buy, what's going to happen, Newberry? If you ask 6,000 people, if you ask 6,000 people to buy your peppers, if you ask 6,000 people to come to your events, if you ask 6,000 people to book you to speak, if you ask 6,000 people to join CBMC, if you ask 6,000 people to let me manage your money, and you could have a horrible closing rate, you still will thrive. We did that 3 years in a row, which means I contacted 18,000 people in 36 months and asked them to buy. Couple lessons in there. I got into the people business, and I got into some rituals. And in 36 months, my wife and I doubled our MBA income. Raise your hand if you would love to double your MBA income. Raise your hand if you would love to double your income right now. If you learn how to market, if you get some good rituals on how to sell, trust me, it will all trickle down to your bottom line. In 36 months, without ever having a real job, in 36 months, we doubled our MBA income because I understood the power of habits and rituals. I knew the difference, but most importantly, through my journey to the MBA, I learned how to become elite. 3, sharks are curious and always learning. I read a book by John Maxwell. He says, if you want to be an expert in any industry, you should have read 2,500 books on the industry. How many free throws did I shoot in those 15 years? How many laps did I run in those 15 years? How many times did I sprain my ankle? How many suicides did I run in those 15 years? And I thought about it, I can't even calculate what it took in 15 years for me to become. If you're inconsistent with your rituals, you're going to be inconsistent with your results. That's why sometimes you have a good year, sometimes you have a bad year. Sometimes you have a good quarter, sometimes you have an off quarter. Sometimes you have a good decade, sometimes you have a bad decade. Sharks are consistent.